included in a tropical storm warning as we expect to see some tropical storm winds push well into the state.
And just tonight, those winds already causing problems on the Louisiana coast.
Yeah, much of Morgan City is in the dark right now, and as we found out, it's downright dangerous. We're tracking the storms live.
And as you sit there tonight, what about flooding? That updated river stage forecast was almost like a slap in the face.
I'll have some answers for you tonight and what it could mean even after that storm has passed.
Now, from Louisiana's News Channel, this is 9 News at 10.
Good evening, friends. Welcome to an hour-long edition of 9 News at 10. And we have brand new information on Tropical Storm Barry as the storm is already impacting our coast.
In fact, take a look right here behind us. Grand Isle already seeing a lot of power lines down. A lot of the folks there staying put, even though they were told to get out. Our chief meteorologist, Jay Grimes, is here and just within the last few seconds has the latest track on Barry. Jay.
That's right, guys. So we've got the numbers out, 10 o'clock numbers. Now, a couple of things here. For the most part, no big changes. Wind still at 65 miles per hour with the gusts up into the 70s. Maybe the most significant thing that's changed is we're now back to a moving storm. If you were with us this evening, storm had kind of started to meander, maybe even wobbled a little bit, but now we're back on that west-northwesterly track, expecting it to continue to push off and into the state as we get through the overnight hours and early tomorrow. You notice that we've got a little convection breaking out along the eastern flank as well. And as Greg pointed out at the top of the show, yep, we're back to now sort of officially recognizing this as a likely Category 1 landfall by Barry right around 7 o'clock or so, and in the vicinity of Morgan City, where our Austin Kempker is, and that's going to take the storm right up into the Atchafalaya Basin. Now, as it does that, keeping Baton Rouge and virtually our entire viewing area on the eastern flank, you know what that means. That's the windier side typically. That is the stormier side with the potential for tornadoes, and that is also typically the wetter side. By the way, notice we've still got what could be tropical storm force winds extending north into the state, north of Alexandria. So this is going to be a significant wind event as well as that threat of heavy rain. So here's the modeled domain of the winds. The first thing I want you to notice, this yellow indicates the area of tropical storm force winds, and look how big it is. As it comes into Morgan City, the area indicated with hurricane force winds, we've got tropical storm force winds extending all the way to New Orleans, Slidell, and Baton Rouge at landfall. Yeah, we could start feeling some tropical storm gusts here right at around sunrise. The envelope continues to move north. We work through the day on Saturday. Sunday morning, the model says we could still be dealing with tropical storm force winds. You know what that means. Winds of that kind of duration, we're talking about power outages, much like they're seeing down along the coast right now. And here's the envelope to give you a sense of our certainty. Where you see this purple shade, we're talking about 90% chance or better of tropical storm force winds. So our friends in Ascension, Assumption, Terrebonne Parish, you're all in the almost slam dunk certainty window. And even up along the state line here in the Felicianas and back into Livingston Parish, we're talking about a 70 to an 80% chance of at least experiencing some low-end tropical storm force winds. And the rains, yep, that hasn't changed either. Still looking at 10 to 15-inch rain numbers, and that's what I'm going to focus on here now, the rivers. So we've got Denham Springs now forecasted to go to 41 feet. Now, it was at 46 feet back in 2016, but that 41 compares to 1983 for you old-timers. And Bayou Manchac, Port Vincent, French Settlement, all way higher than normal and in the top 5 or so in terms of water levels. Then you get to Jor Road there at 34.5 feet. It would actually exceed what they saw back in 2016. So this is a major flood event as well as a wind and rain event. I'll have more rivers for you in just a little bit. Bottom line is, folks, in the next 6 to 12 hours, things are going to start to get very busy in our area. Guys?
All right, Jay, thank you. Now, we are already seeing some reports of power outages from Entergy. Here's a live look at the outage map, and most of the outages are along the coastline, probably about a couple thousand customers total in that area. Again, we'll keep an eye on this for you. Demco also seeing a few customers in South Louisiana in the dark right now, not nearly as many, but again, power outages are a risk that we could be seeing, so be prepared for that. Now, Barry, of course, is off the shore right now, but its effects are already reaching areas like Morgan City. That's
where we find our Austin Kempker. Austin, what are you seeing out there?
Hey guys, yeah, it's actually a little quiet. I'm going to say that at a risk, maybe knock on some wood, but just a couple hours ago, all of this area you see behind me was dark. The power was knocked out and the wind was really blowing. You see these little signs over here. These are handicap signs. So they're waving a little bit in the wind right now. These were actually leaning pretty far over just a couple of hours ago. And now you see, if we can go right over here, you can see all these lights. This hotel that you see over here, you can see it now. There's lights on over there. This was all dark just a couple of hours ago. The wind was blowing really pretty hard, and you were seeing transformers kind of pop off behind the Waffle House sign that you just saw over there. Now the rain has picked up just a little bit. You can kind of sort of see it sheeting through the lights back there. Now this, as I was saying, the wind really got picked up before dark. We started hearing reports of trees coming down, and according to the fire chief, the wind split this tree in half and sent it crashing down on this house. The chief said that there were people there at the time. No one was hurt, thankfully. Now, first responder crews have been busy tonight, even though it's a little quiet right now. Just after that tree came down, they had to respond to the scene of an apartment fire. The chief told me that fire actually started inside the kitchen and was not storm related. But now as we move into the night hours, the wind is still a big concern, but maybe even the larger concern is the rain, which you're kind of starting to see fall a little bit more behind me now. I got to tell you, though, seeing all the power come back on and the wind die down is really kind of eerie for a hurricane rookie out here. Now, we know that's not going to last. We know that as we creep closer and closer to landfall, the conditions are going to worsen, and that's what I want to remind you of. It's past 10 o'clock now, and there's a curfew for all of St. Mary Parish. So you can't be out on the roads. So if you have any plans, just stay home and try and ride this thing out. Guys in Morgan City, Austin Kemker, WAFB 9 News, back to y'all.
All right, Austin, thank you for that. So take a look at this, friends. This is what it looks like right now. This is our radar. All of this, at least much of it, is going to be right there. It's going to be moving right through Baton Rouge. So that's going to mean for a mess on Saturday. As you've heard Jay say over and over, our storm team has been following it. This is going to be a rain event for us big time. You can't sleep on the winds, but the rain is going to cause havoc on some of these rivers. Scotty, we could be talking into next week. He's live for us tonight. Scotty.
Yeah, Greg, of course, rainfall is the big focus tonight, but as Barry inches a little bit closer to moving into Louisiana and making landfall, we can't talk about all that rain without, of course, focusing on the potential impact it could have on our area rivers. Now, here's a look at some of those new numbers released just this evening that Jay walked us through just a moment ago. They show some of what we could expect. The numbers on the left show the current forecast for area rivers and where they could end up cresting. You can see they are a little bit higher than the numbers in the middle that show where the rivers crested back in 2001, but the projected levels right now are expected just shy of where we saw those rivers crest back in August 2016. Of course, the 2016 flood is still fresh on a lot of minds, so tonight a lot of you are concerned.
Well, we hope that it's nowhere near 2016, but there's been some questions that have not been answered.
Yeah, that makes me nervous. I just hope the lights don't go out for a long time, and hope everybody make it safe.
Of course, there's a lot of concern tonight. We'll have a closer look at those numbers as the forecast continues to change. We'll also have what Dr. Steve Caparata has to say about the latest numbers and the rivers as they continue to move forward, and Barry continues to inch a little bit closer to making landfall here in Louisiana. Guys?
Scotty Hunter, thank you. Tonight, officials and families in Livingston Parish are doing everything they can to stay safe ahead of Barry, and that includes opening up an emergency shelter just this evening in the Walker area. That is where we find Kieran Chawla live. Kieran.
Hey, Elizabeth. Yes, they have opened up the first shelter in Livingston Parish. We are at the South Walker Baptist Church. In fact, you can see the first cot. We're told that additional people are expected tonight. Now, this is a precautionary measure, and it will stay open throughout the remainder of this storm. And if additional shelters are needed, they will open. As you can imagine, today, many people spent today getting ready. As the sun falls over Livingston Parish, it's a race against time. Windows and doors are boarded up, sandbags line homes, and some are still making bags in hopes of protecting their houses. The biggest issue for Livingston officials, keeping enough sand on hand. We're told more than 300,000 sandbags are supplying the entire parish, a record because so many are on edge from 2016.
It was hard on everybody, it really was, and some of us are still suffering from the stress from that time.
Denham Springs Mayor Gerard Landry says they've also learned many lessons from 2016, such as this emergency operations center. 3 years ago, City Hall flooded and there was no EOC.
And we were literally sitting on milk crates in the Walgreens parking lot. And it was a very difficult time. We have since learned and obtained some training in Emmitsburg, Maryland. And now we have our own emergency office set up here.
An EOC with every department from the city of Denham Springs present, including the Cajun Navy Relief. The goal, to make response to Denham residents faster and more efficient.
We do understand the importance of what we're up against.
So does the crew with the Gravity Drainage Board in Denham Springs, who are working up till the last minute. In this case, literally pulling a garbage can out of the 3rd Street ditch.
We're pulling out tree limbs, debris like that, but we're also pulling out basketball goals. We're pulling out swing sets, liners, that goes on boat liners or just tarps. It's just trash that is being pulled in from people's yards.
While out, they also cut down limbs and moved everything along the edge of the road. That way, it was easier to pick up and haul off to keep the debris from clogging the ditches once again.
To keep every bit of the water flowing until it just can't. When the river backs up, that's nothing we can control, but at least we can keep the water flowing as it's raining. That's very important, and very important for people to keep their yards clean, pulled out, because it don't take nothing much to block that culvert up and get the water to back up.
Is Denham Springs ready for this?
I think we're as ready as we can be.
Ready as they can be and praying for the best, of course. Now, again, we are at South Walker Baptist Church. I do want to make sure we stress that. There's another one, Walker Baptist Church. This one is on Hammock Street. So if you guys do need a shelter, this will be open. The other thing Livingston officials especially asked us to put out, do not go to a shelter unless it is officially coming from the Livingston officials. So if the Cajun Navy or anybody tells you that there's a shelter, do not listen to that. It has to come from Livingston officials. For now, we are live in Livingston. Karen Chawla, WAFB 9 News. We'll send it back to you guys.
Very good information. Thank you, Karen.
And Ascension Parish officials also opening up a shelter tonight at Lamar Dixon and Gonzales. That just a few hours ago.
The good news about that shelter is they are also accepting pets. So if you need to go there, you can take your pets with us. Carmen Poe has the latest.
Hey guys, not a lot of movement is going on at the shelter right now, but people are slowly making their way in. So just remember, if you are in that low-lying area, if you are in a flood-prone area and you're thinking about coming to the shelter, you need to do that before midnight tonight. Officials are really stressing that issue. You can come, but it needs to be before midnight tonight. Also, if you have a pet, this is some good news here. You can bring your pet. That means your dog, your cat, bring them. The only thing is you need to have food, you need to have water, and you need to have that cage with you, and they will be put in another building beside everyone else. Also, if you have a large animal like a horse, you can bring them as well. You just need to talk to management here about that, and they have a stall that you can put them in. There is a minimal fee that goes along with that, but you do not have to leave your animals at home if you feel like they would not be safe. Now, Ascension officials have not issued a curfew at this time, but that could change.
Haven't sought shelter, if you don't seek it within the next few hours, we recommend that they stay home. I mean, if you start driving around 1 o'clock in the morning, you're going to start seeing the winds, and the highest sustained gusts will be around 9, 10 o'clock. So it's going to be hazardous to drive on the road. So we're recommending that if you don't seek shelter now, remain in place.
Now, if you want up-to-date emergency information that's going on in Ascension Parish, all you need to do is register with Everbridge. Details about the storm will come straight to your phone. That number for you to call and register is 225-450-1200. I will be in Gonzales all weekend, keeping you up to date on the latest that's happening in this area. For now, I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Carmen, thank you. All of Ascension Parish will be in good hands. Tonight, an option for the homeless seeking shelter in East Baton Rouge Parish. The Salvation Army Center of Hope Men's Emergency Shelter is open 24 hours a day right now. Beds will be provided. It's first come, first serve, and they can only fit 80 men at a time. 80. The Salvation Army is looking for donations of lunches, bottled water, hygiene items. You can bring all of that to the Salvation Army there on Airline. It's right across from the old Belmont Victoria. hotel and all that area right there. East Baton Rouge officials tell us tonight they have shelters on standby for the public at large just in case they are needed. There are also some evacuations and curfews in place. Nothing within our immediate area. Assumption Parish and parts of East Feliciana are under a voluntary evacuation. Iberville Parish has a curfew. It is going to go into effect tonight at midnight. All of these details are waiting for you right now on the 9 News app. No curfew in East Baton Rouge, Livingston, or Ascension at this time.
All right, joining us now in studio, we have Congressman Garrett Graves, who is in town. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So talking about this storm right now, what is your primary concern?
The big concern is really the uncertainty associated with it. The storm just, the forecast just showed that it slowed down a little bit, down to 3 miles an hour, which is a walking speed. So when you have the potential rainfall that's loaded in this storm right now, you have it moving as slowly as it is. This is a bad news. It's not the intense winds that we've seen from other hurricanes, full-fledged hurricanes, but the water load that's in this storm, the slow pace, not a good combination. They're projecting anywhere on the low end 5 inches of rain, and in some peak areas up to 25 inches of rain. People need to understand, you get 25 inches of rain anywhere, it's going to flood. You really just don't have the ability to get that kind of water out in a short period of time. So folks need to stay vigilant, paying attention to what forecasters are saying, where the storm is going, if it's speeding up, slowing down, and what the rain loads are. It's not going to be a consistent application of where it floods everywhere. I think you're going to have some really intense areas and other areas that get a bit lighter load.
Right. So talking about the river forecast, I know this as early as 6 o'clock this evening that we had kind of gotten some new numbers of the forecasting of the rivers that definitely making people a lot very nervous, especially when we're looking at the Comey River. What are some of the concerns there, but also how have there has been some progress made since 2016. We don't want to compare this to 2016, but there has been some progress there.
Yeah, we have secured, I mean, this is record numbers of projects and funding, $3 billion in new federal funding for projects. Some of that money has been invested already in helping to make improvements in doing clearing and snagging work, removing some of that debris, removing some of the vegetation from our drainage canals, from our bayous, helping to evacuate the water out faster. So that work's underway. Of course, I'd love to see the full Comey project built and the Baton Rouge Area Flood Control project built, which will be close to $700 million of investments in this region. That work is it's underway, or some of it's underway, but not to the point to where we're going to see drainage improvements yet. But within the next probably 3 years, we're going to see extraordinary differences in the flood protection levels here as compared to before. But so far, we've had about 350 miles of clearing, snagging, cleaning out debris out of many of these drainage canals. So we're hopeful that that's going to result in the faster evacuation of water in some of the areas.
So, you know, as the water comes in and if we do see flooding in some of these areas, and the potential is that there will be flooding somewhere, as people start the process, and this is very fresh off of 2016, but as people start the process, are there any lessons that we have learned to make this a little easier for people?
Well, first of all, I think it's really important. I don't think we can say it enough. People need to stay vigilant. Conditions can change at any point in time. Number two, I think one of the lessons learned is just how much the community can help one another. What we saw in 2016 was a perfect example, largely under this larger umbrella of the Cajun Navy. I think in terms of applications and recovery and things along those lines, we need to be real careful about the SBA loans, as we learned the painful lesson, over 7,000 families from the disaster last time. But I do think that making sure that folks are stepping up and applying for the FEMA funds initially, as we saw in 2016, it was a big help, and making sure that folks are getting out whenever water starts rising, or if it looks like they're hearing the messages from meteorologists that it looks like their area could flood. Too many people waited, I think, a little bit too long and ended up losing vehicles, losing a lot of family heirlooms and other things. And so, look, if there's any question, let's make sure that we evacuate early.
All right, so Congressman, is there any other thoughts or anything that you want people to tonight as we expect this landfall to happen overnight.
Yeah, look, I know a lot of people try and compare this to 83 flood, apply this to compared to 2016 flood. The most important thing to recognize, no two floods are the same. We have never, ever been in a condition in Louisiana where we have record high water in the Mississippi River flood stage and we have a tropical storm coming in. It's never happened before. So this is different. You're going to see different floods. You're going to see different water behaving in ways in neighborhoods differently. And folks just need to understand that just because you didn't flood in 83 or 2016 or what have you, it doesn't necessarily mean you're safe right now. So be vigilant. Let's get through this peak and then help out our neighbors.
All right, Congressman Garrett Graves joining us here tonight. Thank you very much for your time. By the way, we expect another update from the governor around 2:30 tomorrow afternoon. Of course, Barry is expected to have made landfall by then. We will bring you there when the governor and other officials speak on air on our news app and our Facebook page, and of course here on WAFB.
As we speak, you continue to be our eyes and ears ahead of Barry. Take a look at this. You've already sent in several pictures and videos, including this one here, waves crashing on shore in Grand Isle. Keep in mind, this was earlier today, so the conditions have already deteriorated from this. They are under a mandatory evacuation. Another video shows the National Guard passing along Nicholson Drive. This was a welcome sight today, in place just in case. The National Guard says they've deployed 3,000 guardsmen across the state, and we've got plenty of them right here in our backyard. We encourage you to be our eyes and ears. If you've got something that we need to see, you can send it to us at 9reports.com. 9reports.com. It's very easy, self-explanatory once you get there. Just don't put yourself in danger. Just take it and be safe with it. Now, later tonight, we're going to switch things up. You know, we're going an hour tonight, so we're going all the way till 11 o'clock. What are some of the questions that you may have through all of this? You get a chance to ask Jay Grimes your question directly. Send them to us right now. If you've got your phone in your hand, alert@wafb.com. That's the email address we want you to use. Think of your question. Now, he can't get you right down to your address. Is my street going to flood? That's just not how it works, but he can at least give you a few ideas and perhaps answer something that's been on your mind tonight, something that you're worried about. Send us that question right now, alert@wafb.com. We'll work on them and get them here for you. We'll put them to the test, to the man himself, in just a little bit. Liz?
Well, we have a new look tonight at some of the water splashing over the barriers in the New Orleans area. You can see kind of pretty incredible video and a lot of people sharing this one online as well. There's, of course, a lot of worry about what Barry will do here, including that flooding threat. Here's Hillary Lane.
Along the Gulf Coast, people are bracing for the big storm.
We were hoping it wouldn't be so bad and we can just ride it out, so that's what we're doing.
Tropical Storm Barry is expected to be a hurricane by the time it makes landfall Saturday. The National Weather Service warns of dangerous storm surge, heavy rains, and wind conditions forecast across the north central Gulf Coast. New Orleans officials are urging residents to stay home and are telling tourists to seek shelter in their hotels.
Tropical Storm Barry is a dangerous and life-threatening storm. You do not have much more time at all before the impacts of Barry will be here.
The city of New Orleans is calling for a voluntary evacuation for areas that aren't protected by levees. Storm surge is already flooding Grand Isle as Barry heads for the Louisiana coast.
We're on the front line. As the crew, this is the storm coming. We're the first barrier island to protect New Orleans.
We know from past experience you can't wait until you're underwater to start calling for help.
The Mississippi River is already much higher than usual for this time of year due to earlier flooding. That, combined with the chance of more than 2 feet of rain and a surge of seawater, is why officials see this storm as a triple threat. Hillary Lane, CBS News, New Orleans.
Now back here closer to home, leaders in Ascension Parish have been keeping folks updated as to the threat that they face as people prepare. The sheriff made this comparison to try and help you understand what you could be dealing with.
There were 2 flood events in 16. There was one in March. A lot of us have forgotten about that one because we remembered the one in August. The experts are telling us these crests of these rivers on the Amite are going to be somewhere in between both of those events. So if chances are that you experience some flooding in March of 16, there's a possibility you will experience some flooding again.
The Ascension Parish Office of Emergency Preparedness says they are getting calls tonight about evacuations or curfews. Now, they want to stress at this time There are no curfews or evacuations in place for Ascension Parish. There are some in other areas of our viewing area, and we have that list, and we continue to update it as we get those on our 9 News app.
Floodgates close in New Orleans. They've closed them. You see them right there. Take a look at that. It's always interesting to see that. As to lessen the impact of Barry, the Flood Protection Authority closed the gates in New Orleans, East and St. Bernard Parish. Hundreds of floodgates and valves have been closed there ahead of Barry's landfall just to keep everything safe. Lafourche Parish is another area under a voluntary evacuation order, and shelters are now in place for people looking for a place to perhaps ride out the storm. Let's check in with Sabrina Wilson from our newsroom in New Orleans.
This shelter has been open all day, and around 8 o'clock tonight, about 16 people had arrived to seek shelter here during the weather conditions brought on by Barry. Of course, a tree was felled on Highway 308 tonight, just an example of the deteriorating weather. Strong winds, off and on heavy rain. Emergency crews arrived on the scene and quickly worked together to get that tree removed from the roadway so that no one would be hurt. Earlier today, Highway 1 on between Golden Meadow and Grand Isle was shut down because the water from Bayou Lafourche was racing onto the roadway. Here at the shelter director tells me that everyone is welcome, but they need to bring their own supplies.
I did speak with the Sheriff's Department, and even after curfew, which is 10 o'clock until 8 tomorrow morning, even after curfew, if you feel unsafe in your home, please know that you can get out. If you feel that where you're at is unsafe, you can get out and come straight to the shelter. If an officer was to stop you, please let them know that you're on your way to the shelter. They may escort you, or they may let you know get by.
We got a call in the town of Leeville. A mother who had stayed with her 8-month-old baby wanted to be rescued. We were able to make that rescue. Deputy Lee Ray, who's here with me, had to wade through waist-deep water to get him into his truck and get him out.
The parish says the shelter can accommodate about 500 people. So again, people are welcome. Just bring your own food, and no pets allowed unless they are service animals.
Sabrina, thank you.
Well, we're going to update you on any changes to our 9 News app, and as our coverage continues, we want to remind you of several ways that you can stay connected with us even if you lose power through the storm. You can continue to follow our updates and coverage through our WAFB News app, our First Alert Weather app. You can actually track the storm in that app, as well as on our WAFB Facebook page. You can also stay connected through our Cumulus Radio partners, and you see them there on your screen.
As soon as we go into continuous coverage, you'll be able to hear us there, especially when that power goes out. A reminder tonight, we're going to be on the air for some time on this extended version of our 10 o'clock news to kind of bring you extended coverage as we all prepare for Tropical Storm Barry together. Jay Grimes.
Well, folks, we've been telling you it is already a strong tropical storm. We're expecting Barry to make its way towards the coast during the early morning hours tomorrow. You'll notice in the sequence here on the eastern flank of the spin, that looks like it's getting a little better organized. Wind speeds, we're talking about 20s around the metro area and even as much as sustained winds close to 30s down along the coast. Now the gusts, yeah, they're even more impressive, 30s everywhere, and we've seen some gusts into the 40s. Of course, the storm just offshore, so all of those numbers are going to be coming up. Again, as Tony mentioned a minute ago, you see a little bit of action building on the eastern flank here, still kind of open on its western side, so not the best development for a healthy system, but we do think as we push along through the overnight hours, and this is the NAM model, you get the sense that it's starting to at least close up around its northern flank. May not ever get fully tightened up, but we still expect it to become a low-end hurricane as it makes its landfall right at around 7 o'clock. And then it moves to the north, and notice how it just slings more and more moisture into southeast Louisiana as it lifts north relatively slowly through the morning hours, and then will pick up a little speed as it gets into the afternoon. So a landfall is a Cat 1 right at around 7 a.m. Notice as it's passing by Lafayette, still winds up in the 60s. That's going to produce some damage there. And you're going to see, especially in heavily treed areas, lots of downed trees. And you get all the way up into the state line here, and notice it's still in Louisiana potentially into Sunday. So this is going to be a relatively slow mover. Showed you this a minute ago, but now I've put down the timeline. So the purple indicates the likelihood of tropical storm force winds. And basically we're saying tropical storm force winds will be in the Baton Rouge area, and the arrival time could be as early as the early morning hours. So the winds are going to be out ahead of the system. The system making landfall probably around 7 a.m. and the model here suggesting that we could have low-end tropical storm force winds in the greater Baton Rouge area by 8 or 9. And then once they get in here, they're going to continue for a while. The big story, of course, today has been the river forecast. 41 feet for Denham Springs. That's sort of equivalent to something to 1983. 20 at Bayou Manchac. You're still talking about 13.5 or more at Port Vincent. And as you get down to the Comite there, 34.5, which would be an all-time record there. Now, a couple of these numbers may be on the higher side of what will be realized, but it gives you a sense of what to get ready for. We get over on the Tickfall, 21 feet at Holden. You folks over there know that is a lot of water, and we've got 21 feet in Robert. Basically, what we're seeing is that the numbers start to come down in terms of the sort of the unusual character, the record-setting pace as you get farther to the east away from the core of the system. So what are we expecting? Overnight tonight around the Baton Rouge area, we could see winds 15 to 30 miles per hour with gusts getting up to the 30s and 40s, and the numbers will be a little lower to our north, a little higher to our south, and then most of us are going to stay relatively dry tonight. Now, as we get into the day on Saturday, that's going to be the wet one. 5 to 10, possibly some larger totals over the course of the day on Saturday. Winds, the gusts are going to be up in the 50s and 60s with winds getting into the low to middle end range of tropical storm force during the day on Saturday into Saturday evening. And then on Sunday, it's still not over. We could still see another 3, 4, even 6 inches of rain or more on Sunday, and the winds will be slowly backing down as the day progresses. But both Saturday and Sunday are going to be real messes. The biggest amount of the rain on Saturday, but Sunday won't be a dry day. In fact, we could still see a little lingering rain into Monday too. So if you've got everything together, and I hope you have, plan on just staying home this weekend. Yeah, you may be dealing with some power outages, but you don't need to be on the road. Definitely not Saturday, and probably not Sunday if you can help it either. Now, as we get into next week, we'll start to back down on those rain chances just a bit. We'll go still with the rain likely on Monday, and then something that's more like a sort of the typical scattered type pattern we have in the summertime, with the daytime highs topping out in the lower 90s. Getting around the corner all the way into next weekend, it's back to summer weather. But I do want to remind you, with these rivers going to such high levels, we are going to be all week long and probably into next weekend watching those rivers slowly come back down to something more typical.
All right, Jay, thank you very much. And again, you are sitting in your questions. We will have our Q&A with Jay in just a few minutes, and a lot of repeats here. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can. Of course, we're not going to get to everyone, but we're definitely going to do our best on that.
Yes, indeed. Well, there unfortunately is other news of the day, and this one's a sad one, folks. A sad update to a crash we told you about at 6 on Airline Highway in Prairieville. We just got a new update from state police literally just a few moments ago. They say 8-year-old Lyric Crenshaw died after being thrown from a vehicle. This happened right in front of the Rouse's supermarket there on Airline Highway at Germany Road. State police say 3 others were also hurt, 2 of those pretty badly.
All right, folks, stick around. We'll be right back after this break. Friends, we are going to take another live look at the radar here as we continue to track Barry. Again, we are expecting this to make landfall overnight, again, inching closer to the shores. Many areas already feeling that impact, including Morgan City, where we had a live report at the top of the show. But again, folks, we just continue to keep our eye on this.
So we talked with Scotty Hunter a little earlier on, and we were talking about how this is going to impact the weather. In fact, the rivers. In fact, a lot of you, the questions you've been asking and seeing stuff all over social media, what is this going to do to the rivers? Let's check in with Scotty Hunter. He is live outside with us now. And Scotty, you've talked with one of our own experts in-house about this.
Yeah, Greg, Barry could pack quite a punch in our area. And of course, with all the rainfall we're expecting, there's the concern over where it will all go. Of course, that has a lot of you tonight worried about the rivers. Sobering new numbers on Tropical Storm Barry and its imminent impact with South Louisiana.
Now we're looking at some pretty serious threats along the Amite and the Comite as examples. Denham Springs, now the forecast at 41 feet now. In 2016, it was 46 feet.
While it's important not to panic, our Dr. Steve Caparata with the WAFB First Alert Weather Team says the rainfall could spell trouble for parts of the capital area.
It's significantly worse, but the thing we need to emphasize right now, too, is the significant uncertainty that's involved in those forecast numbers. But the takeaway right now is the rain forecasts still have the real heavy stuff over the heart of the WAFB viewing area, the heart of our river basins.
To put things in perspective, the forecast calls for area rivers to crest above what we saw back in 2001, but just shy of what we saw in 2016. The numbers on the left are what's expected with Barry, while the middle numbers show where the rivers crested in 2001. The ones on the right show the crests in 2016. More troubling, though, is the Comite along Jewel Road near Central. It's expected to crest even higher than 2016 at 34.5 feet.
If these forecasts are anywhere close to accurate, this is closer to a 1983 flood, but still, in most spots, not quite to 2016.
Unlike 2016, we could also see something else with this one, more power outages.
But this time around, it's a multifaceted attack. Heavy rainfall, big time winds, and that will likely produce some power outages.
Are you terribly concerned about what's coming?
I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm a realist, so that's why I'm out here.
With August 2016 still fresh for so many, some are already getting antsy about what we could see.
Well, we hope that it's nowhere near 2016, but there's been some questions that have not been answered.
Yeah, that makes me nervous.
As folks scramble to get last-minute sandbags and brace for the impact, they admit the fear has set in even before the tropical storm arrives.
I just hope the lights don't go out for a long time and hope everybody make it safe.
Like what we saw 3 years ago, Barry is also projected to be a slow mover. With landfall expected for just a few hours from now on Saturday morning, we could still see heavy rainfall through Sunday.
And that's why we have the concern. These heavy rain bands set up, roll over the same areas, and dump inches upon inches of rainfall.
While we can't pinpoint exactly what Mother Nature will bring until we're on the other side of this one, Barry certainly has a lot of folks wondering what if as they wait for what's next.
Everybody just need to be home safe with their family.
Now, if there is any silver lining in all of this, of course, the governor and other elected officials continue to echo that we are more prepared now than we've ever been as a state. Still, there's a lot of concern as Barry barrels this way. Guys?
Scotty Hunter, thank you for that. In New Orleans, it's a very different feel in a usually rowdy French Quarter. Brett Buffington shows us how businesses are getting ready tonight.
On this Friday night here in New Orleans, it feels like a ghost town. The mayor here asked people to shelter in place starting at 8 o'clock this evening. And look at this video. This is the famous French Quarter. The businesses there, some boarded up, most of them sandbagged, some closed, and the streets are practically empty. Throughout the afternoon here, there have been rain bands and wind associated with Tropical Storm Barry moving along the coast. The storm still 85 miles off the Morgan City shore. That is where Tropical Storm Barry is expected to become a hurricane tomorrow morning and make landfall. Here in New Orleans, the threat continues to be the heavy rain, expected to be as much as 18, if not more, inches. That flood threat stretches inland well into Baton Rouge, where they could face 18 inches to 2 feet of rainfall over the weekend. Of course, we'll be here in New Orleans continuing to monitor the conditions of Tropical Storm Barry and the rain effects it brings here to this city. Already a historic storm here in New Orleans. They have never had a tropical system this early. That stays for the whole state of Louisiana. But here in New Orleans, they have never before had to close all of the hurricane storm surge protection barriers, the gates on both the Mississippi River and along Lake Pontchartrain. We are reporting from New Orleans, Louisiana tonight. I'm Brett Buffington. Now back to you.
Brett, thank you for that. Houston, a city that is all too familiar with hurricanes and severe weather, just like us, they're planning to send help here as Barry looms. Houston's mayor actually announced a relief hub and a call for donations ranging from diapers to batteries and bottled water. The donations are expected to go to New Orleans and the surrounding areas. Houston also took in about 150,000 evacuees following Hurricane Katrina back in 2005. So Louisiana and Texas very familiar with taking care of each other in times of need.
As expected, the Louis Armstrong International Airport there in New Orleans had long lines. Take a look as people did their best to get out and fly out. You don't always see that. A lot of passengers boarding planes were from the different conventions, one including that sorority convention. I think we showed you a little bit of their story last night. The storm cut their trip short big time.
We were having a great time. The conference was well organized for the parts we were able to participate in. Of course, having the imminent thought of danger was a little scary, but overall we had a great time, and we're just sad that it got cut short.
Other passengers say as the forecast evolved, they slowly pushed up their flights to leave New Orleans. The majority of folks who waited in long lines say as long as they can remain safe, they can handle some of those headaches.
All right, one more look at that radar as we head into break. Up next, we will have that Q&A with Jay Grimes, try to get your questions answered as best we can. Stick around.
The last time we had some considerable amount of flooding, we took you around the country and showed you different spots. This time it's right in our own backyard. This is New Orleans. You can see the water lapping up on the lakefront.
All right, friends, well, on our desk, we have a slew of questions that you have sent in. Our mailbox is very full right now. We're going to try to get to some of them. Real quick, I want to address, we've gotten several questions about evacuations and shelters. Where are they and should I evacuate? There are some orders. Now, on our WAFB page and our 9 News app, we have this list. We are constantly updating it by parish and by city. If there is a shelter, if there is evacuation order, that information will be right there at your fingertips, and that is the best place to find that.
All right, let's get right to the questions. Carolyn G. wrote, and I thought this was pretty interesting. Will there be any breaks, like a considerable amount of break, when the rains start? Because I think some people, when they see those 10-inch totals, they think all 10 inches are coming down.
That's a great question. And typically, in fact, if you look behind us here, you see some banding in the radar loop, and that's exactly the kind of thing that we'll often see is period of heavy rain, and then there'll be a break in between a rain band, and then in comes another band of rain. So yeah, even in these events, typically it's not just a all-day deluge, which is what it was like in 2016. Here we're more likely to see some breaks, but periods of heavy rain, a stop, and then another round.
And speaking of 2016, we've gotten a lot of questions of how does this one compare to 2016?
Well, I think with most people, what they're really talking about is how is the high water going to compare with 2016? And right now, we're looking at an event that probably won't be close to it, except for the current forecast on the Comeet River. But for the most part, we're talking about an event here that still, even if it's not 2016, for many rivers, it's going to rank as a top 3, top 4, top 5 flood. So regardless, this is a major event, whether it's repeat of 16 or not.
All right, Mario Easley writes, how will the wind affect the Amite River Basin?
Well, there's a couple of things that are in play here. In fact, we're already seeing rises on the lower portion of the Amite Basin because of the wind pushing Lake Maurepas in. When we have these long runs of southeasterly flow, see how the wraparound flow there, the rain band is working from south to north or southeast to northwest, and that's actually also related to the wind flow. So you're already seeing water rise in the lower portions of the rivers just because of the wind. Now, what that also does is it literally creates a water dam at the bottom of the rivers, so it slows down the rate at which high rivers can drain later in the week.
So sticking with the rivers, Catherine Bryson is asking about the Mississippi River. With the Mississippi River in flood stage already, how does throwing a tropical storm on top of this affect things?
And I think she talks about, she specifically lives along River Road right here in Baton Rouge, so she's wondering, we've never seen a flood from the Mississippi, at least in her lifetime, so
you know, the nervousness of all the folks with regard to the levees in the Mississippi, understandable with this all-time record event here. But in terms of the tropical storm impact on the river here locally, it's really not going to be a big deal because keep in mind, even with 10 to 15 inches of rain in the area, very little, almost none of that rain goes into the Mississippi. It all goes down the Amite River on this side of the river, and on the other side of the Mississippi, it all goes down the Atchafalaya. So it's not going to be a problem here. Now, the concern with that tropical storm is in the lower portion of the Mississippi, where there's already been evacuations like in Plaquemines Parish because of the fear that the storm surge would create overtopping of the levees.
This person here, Donald Lively, says some people in Central flooded in 2016 in certain areas from rain from one day, and then others who lived closer to the Comeet did not flood until the next day or a few days after that. Is that something that we could see again, is sort of that delayed flooding?
You know, the central area is the most complicated portion of our entire viewing area because we got to remember they have the rivers on either side. It's the Comeet on the west and the Amite on the east. And in 2016, they got the double whammy with both rivers going into record flood. This time, both rivers are going to be especially high, but the Amite probably not as high. So it gets really complicated in terms of trying to figure out which neighborhoods in the central area have something to be especially concerned about.
Another question is we're getting a lot of tornadoes. Ms. Dermot Thompson, we see the wind gust projections, but do you anticipate tornado activity?
You know, tornadoes are one of those things we often forget to mention, and tornadoes are a big part of tropical weather. And the perfect example, back in 2008, I know it was a while back ago, but that was when we had Goose Gustav and Ike hit Louisiana. Those two named storms dropped 36 tornadoes in Louisiana. Wow. So it does occur, and typically what we have to watch are those very same rain bands that also drop the heavy rains. That's where we'll typically see these quick spinners. Now, more often than not, tornadoes associated with the tropics are not all that long-lived and not all that big, but they can be deadly. We saw that in 1992's Andrew.
Terry Covington, she wants to know, and we see them all the time, we see you talk about your river crest and the forecast. She wants to know how that's calculated.
That's a great question, and we'll try and do this very quickly because we could spend an hour on that question. Basically, computer models first figure out what the distribution of the rainfall on the land is going to be. Then the computer models try and sort of assess how wet was the ground before the rain fell, and then it also evaluates the shape of the land, and that's how you take those three layers, combine them, and you turn that rainfall into river flow. And ultimately, then you calculate at what point will the river flow be the greatest and how long will it take to go back down.
All right, we have one kind of interesting here. Ken Michael wants to know, when you show these different raincasts, these different models, the Euro model, the GFS, there's some variation.
Sometimes big, yeah.
How do you get that variation, and where do you kind of find the answer?
Another one that we could talk about forever, but think about it here. This is an analogy I use in the classroom all the time. If you took two chefs and gave them the exact same ingredients and said, make me a chocolate cake, you know you would get two chocolate cakes, but they would be different, right? Well, computer modeling, and that's what these are, computer models are built by meteorological chefs. And what you end up with at the end, with all the same ingredients going in, but how they cook the cake is how the models turn out to be different in the end.
A follow-up on that one, is there one that you kind of lean toward sometimes?
You know, everybody knows this by now, or most people do. We all kind of lean towards the European model. It has been, in recent years, a better model most or much of the time, but not every time. And in fact, the best way to do what we do when it comes to forecasting where a storm's going is to look at all the models and effectively sort of pull out a consensus of the group. Throw out the outliers, the ones that don't fit, and if you take the rest of them that are sort of packed together, that's a pretty good bet.
All right, last one for the night. It kind of brings everything together. When do you expect, this is from Ms. Scroggs, when do you expect Barry to reach Baton Rouge, and what time do you expect the worst weather, and how long will it last?
Okay, those are kind of two different questions, because first off, when do we say that we'll start to get some tropical storm force winds? And remember, we're not talking about 60s and 70s, 40 miles per hour, we've already crossed that threshold. That could start at daybreak tomorrow. So it's going to be breezy tonight and windy by the morning. So in one sense, that's when I would say we could expect Barry to show up. If you're asking about the rainfall, the rains will begin in the morning, but really kick in big time into the afternoon and evening. So that's sort of a two-part question. Bottom line is, I still believe, even though wind's going to be an issue, rains are going to be the big deal. Get ready for power outages because of the winds, but be more concerned about water thanks to the rains. And that's why I'm asking you, don't go driving this weekend. Stay home, because even if you don't live along one of those rivers, you're going to encounter a road that's got high water on it.
All right, Jay Grimes, thank you so much for answering those questions, and thank you all for submitting them. We're trying to get to kind of the highlights there and give you some good answers tonight.
All right, folks, we'll be right back. Stay with us. please do not leave your pet behind. This is video from 2016. This was actually in the Baker area right here. Please take your pets with you. This is the big, huge, mega shelter in Alexandria. It is state run and they will not turn away your pets. So if you have pets, you can go to there. If you even live in this area, they'll help you get there by bus if you end up having to evacuate. Bring your supplies with you. Bring your vaccination records. If you don't have your vaccination records, they will vaccinate your pet when you get there.
If you're going to leave with your pet, you need to have a carrier and then also food, and bring some water that they're used to drinking. And again, any bedding or something like that or favorite toy they may like. And your veterinary medical records. Get your records, put them in a Ziploc bag. Those records, so that when you go, because if you come to the mega shelter, if you haven't been vaccinated, no records of vaccination, you're going to be vaccinated.
We're told the mega shelter, of course, is not a boarding facility, so you can't drop off your pets. It's more like a pet hotel, but you stay there with them. The pets are in one building. The owners are in the building next door. You have access to your pets at least twice a day, so you can get out and walk them and play with them. Again, the mega shelter won't turn pets away. That is the same for all state shelters. That's the new state law. So state shelter, you can get your pets in there. Please, if you don't do anything at all, if you have to leave them behind, and we ask you not to do that, do not leave them chained, please.
Well, how about some lighter news? As we told you earlier, we want you to send us photos and videos, your eyes and ears as well, as long as you stay safe. And many of you have already sent her pictures, including this adorable little girl in Morgan City enjoying the wind in her face and in her hair. Look at that.
That is perfect hurricane hair right there.
It absolutely is.
Thank you for that, whoever sent that in. We really love that. That one made my day for sure. All right, another viewer sending us this photo here. We've not seen these before. This one's pretty cool too. Sporting the little shirt. I am Barry ready. Boy, that parent is on it right there. Already has a shirt ready to go and some floaters. Love it.
Yeah, where do you get the shirts like that? Is that on order? All right, well, humans aren't the only ones that need to get prepared, as we told you. This actually came out from a lady that I know down in Ascension Parish, Miss Liz. This is a donkey in Irwinville, ready for Barry. He has his floaties, a noodle, life jackets, even some goggles up there on his head.
How long does it take to get the floaties on the donkey and then after that put it in boots?
I know, a very patient donkey.
That's awesome.
So again, 9reports.com if you want to share those photos. Again, they don't always have to be the serious stuff. The lighthearted ones are appreciated as well.
Sometime within the next millennium, hopefully, the Rolling Stones will be able to play New Orleans. They've had to cancel the concert all sorts of times. They've had to cancel it now. Again, hold on to your tickets. They've now moved that Superdome performance to Monday instead of Sunday. So not canceled, but at least postponed. Obviously, all of this is because of Barry. So it was supposed to be Sunday now, or it was, Monday instead of Sunday. So please get your Rolling Stones tickets, hold them, and you'll be able to go to them. The band says we'll get through this together. Rolling Stones.
All right, we got a little bit more coming up after this break.
Another quick look at Tropical Storm Barry. Now, not very textbook looking there. You know, you see the western flank is kind of open. Here's a look at the track one more time with a landfall, probably as a hurricane, right around daybreak or so tomorrow morning. Then it slowly but steadily works off to the north. Notice that puts all of our viewing area on the eastern flank, the sort of the bad side, if you will, of the track. So here's what you got going then with Barry. The first thing, of course, will be the rainfall. Saturday will be the wettest day, but we've got significant rains for Sunday as well. Tropical storm force winds, that's going to occur for much of the day tomorrow and into the evening as well. May even extend into the early hours on Sunday. Surge is a problem along the coast, but also the tidal lakes. So keep that in mind. If you live down there in Lower Livingston or East Ascension, Maurepas is going to come up a bit, and that's going to be a problem for you folks there. And the last thing I just always like to throw in there is be patient, folks. Take the 2 days, spend it at home, do something inside, don't get out on the roads. It's just not safe, and you just need to make sure that you ride this storm out. Yep, flooding is going to be the big issue, and for those of you that have some concerns, we're going to be here overnight tonight, keeping you up to date and right into the day tomorrow.
I guess it is prime time, so we can say we might have some berries in about 9 months from now. Who knows? All right, we do have some very important tools, especially when we lose power. We've got a lot of important information waiting for you right now on our WAFB app. So perhaps you already have it on your phone, but maybe your mom needs it or somebody you can help. Let them get the weather app and the WAFB app. By the way, we've also got on our Facebook page the radar pinned right to the top of that. So if you're fumbling around on Facebook, want to get a quick look at the radar, it'll be right there at WAFB Facebook page.
Absolutely. And folks, we're going to be with you here through this whole event. We'll have updates on the top of the hour through the morning, and at 4 a.m. we're actually going to start our continuous coverage. Matt and Lauren will be in along with our morning crew. So we're going to be with you through this whole thing until it's all over.
And you saw that the radio stations there, if we lose power and you need to, or if you lose power and you need to try to get to us, you can listen to us right there on the radio, our terrific Cumulus Media partners.
All right, everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and we'll see you back here.
Good night.